This is Robert Steele for Group Johannisthal and SCR 316, working on the Memoranda project during Sprint 3. I worked on creating the back-end logic of defects, um, calculating when the most defects are added on a given phase and when the most are removed on a given phase, along with recording them into a data structure that is already existing in the project. Along with that task in user story 87, I added a summary panel down here that'll show for the group that uses this tool when and how many defects are added and removed, or injected or removed. Um, the next step would be to create some listeners and update this as users add in defects through this interface. I was able to test all the backend code through JUnit. Front-end code was non-functioning at this time, so I didn't add any testing for those because it would just be redundant at that point. The next step, obviously, like I mentioned, would be testable, but at the current state, it's not possible to test the user side or user interface side.
My name is Matthew Cleary, and I was responsible for the PSP estimate form and defect log this semester. And in Sprint 3, I was charged with serializing both forms. This was done through the XOM library that's included in the Memoranda application. This creates a series of XML structures and records it to an XML document, at which point they can be reloaded upon reopening the program. So to test it, we'll begin by opening a couple of code modules to test this. And a couple of defects as well. And then we can close the application, reopen it, and we can see that the two defects remain, were reloaded as part of the serialization, as well as the two code module estimates. So we'll test the editing function next, make sure that these are recorded and serialized properly, and we'll also delete one of the tasks to make sure they're removed properly from the serialization. And we'll repeat this again with the defect log, editing this defect and removing the second. We'll close the application once more, reopen, and we see that the defect was edited, updated, and serialized, and the second defect was removed, and we find the same result. There's one edited code module, and the second code module was deleted. So that was my work for Sprint 3.
Hello, my name is David Arnold, and I would like to show off user story 87, where the goal was to enhance the personal software process by providing meaning to the data the user was collecting. Specifically for the tasks I was working on, the charge was to create an interface where the user inputs the number of defects found injected per type, inputs the total number of hours on the project, and is given a rate of defect type per hour. I completed 5 tasks in the implementation of this feature. Task 107 was building a panel for the user input, and task 110 was adding that panel to the summary page. Task 111 was the event handler that listened for this button here, calculate, to be pressed. And then task 104 was performing the calculations. And task 91 was the JUnit test I created to verify that the logic behind the statistical calculations were done correctly. So to demonstrate, suppose you found 2 defects of the documentation type in your 15 hours into the project, and you found 4 the syntax type. Hit calculate, and it gives you the results 0.133 defects per hour for documentation, 0.267 defects per hour for syntax. The vision for this feature is to have these fields populate automatically once defects are logged. Then the user would have the ability to also save that information to a file, but these are features that would be implemented in a later sprint. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Thomas Curry and I'm working on User Story 59. And for this task, I was going to implement some calculations for some of the fields for the project summary. So we can go ahead and check those out. If we make a few defects here, and then go back to the summary, we can see that if you manually input the project line of code, say 100, it'll give you the defects for 1,000 lines of code based on the amount of defects we put in. And I also did for the to-date percentage area, so if you put in, let's see, we spent 10 hours on there, 10 hours there, and it'll give you the percentage to date of the time that you've spent in each of these phases, and it should all add up to 100%, which it does. Thanks.
Hello, this is Cord. I was finishing up branch 46 this sprint to repurpose the Tasks tab to a session tracking log. Task 53, remove progress from session. Task 105, remove priority from session. And Task 106, remove effort from session. There were fields in the session dialog for each of these, but now they are gone, and the only things remaining are the ones relevant to sessions.
This is Brenda Reardon. I completed user story number 84, which was to make all the icons consistent in the application. And I started with task number 92, which was to find a repository of icons to use. After I found that, I was able to complete tasks number 94 through 101. Essentially, that was to replace all of the icons in the menu bar over here, and if they had a new panel, then I also updated the icon there. Previously, these icons had been mixed from the original icons or a few new ones that had been added in with new panels. So it was definitely important to address those in making them consistent. I also addressed this calendar bar here. It used to have a check mark to indicate that you had a task that was being worked on. So I changed it to have the timer to match the Sessions tab, so when you click it, you're taken to the Sessions tab, and now it makes sense with the tab you're being taken to and the type of information it's trying to display. All the other icons in the application seemed okay and to fit within the color scheme, so I left them for now, but they could possibly be revisited in a future sprint. Thank you. Here is what our sprint backlog looks like at the end of sprint 3. As you can see, we were able to complete 38 out of the 46 committed points. There was one task we were unable to complete, which is why we were not able to close this user story, the user story for the project summary form, and to complete our commitment. All the tasks that we were able to finish have been moved to the close column. We feel that we did really well overall for this project. We learned the fundamentals of distributed work with Git and GitHub. We also learned how to minimize potential conflicts when merging and completing pull requests. There was also a goal at the start of the project to get more familiar with Java Swing, and since everybody was able to work with Swing in some capacity, we met that goal. And over the course of the 3 sprints, we became more familiar with everyone's different skill sets, and we learned how to work with those skills to become better as a team. Our 3 main accomplishments were the additions of the PSP forms, the improvement of the GUI usability and appearance, and the ability to secure the app with the login functionality and the ability to create accounts. So we feel that Agile has some pros and cons. It definitely has a bit of a learning curve, especially when introducing several new tools and processes all at once at the beginning of the class. We also feel that Agile is more suited for teams that can interact in a face-to-face environment. But once some of those issues are overcome, it's definitely a great way to complete a project in an incremental way. And it's also nice to have the transparency when working in a team setting, when you're able to go into the sprint backlog and see the status of each of the tasks and what everybody is working on. Thank you.